Right. Hello and welcome, Just a Family. This is giving you something to talk about, or Just a Life TV, as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. Today, we're going to be talking about creating an intentional life, what it means, and how you can create your own. Our sponsor today is a Phoenix Identity. If you want to first learn how to control your life, you'll then learn how to control the rest of your life. So go and check out that link to the Embrace Your Positivity Guide with the introduction to the Rockstar Method. Link in the description. If at any point you want to connect with either myself or my guest speaker, whether we are live or on the replay, you can absolutely comment, you can get involved in the discussion, or you can click the links in the description and reach out to either one of us. So go and check those out and let's get started. Cathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me on. Always an honor to share, and allowing space on your platform is something I'm grateful for. So my name is Cathy McKinnon. I am a transformation coach, an author, a speaker. My most coveted title is Mother, out of Chicagoland area, where I have morphed my business into helping women really step into, their personal leadership style and brand, even outside of their business. Who are they, so that they can really truly begin to walk as the living legends that we were really put here to be and become, and leave that mark on this earth that we were meant to leave.
Absolutely. I'm all about identity. It's my favorite business. So that I absolutely love. We should be connecting to who we are and who we're meant to be. And we always have the ability to connect to that. So I love that. Okay. So today we're talking about creating an intentional life. And I love that. So I'm an identity coach and spiritual teacher and business mentor. So take all three of those businesses and all three of those niches, and you look through social media, and it's all about intention, manifestation, all of these things, all these words that are being thrown out there. I've seen a lot of people ask, well, what really is that? What really is manifestation? What really is intention? And I like intention because I use it in my everyday, in my conversations. What am I intending to say? What is my intention behind this action? What is my intention behind the words that I'm using? And how am I portraying those? So I do love this topic. So what do you think your favorite thing about creating an intentional life is?
I think my personal favorite thing is stepping back and seeing how all the pieces, whether it's just the daily things that I do, fit into the big picture, right? Where am I trying to go? What am I trying to achieve? And while some of these daily tasks, many of us can look at as mundane or routine or robotic, are they really fitting into where I'm trying to go? Or am I just doing them just because it's part of my daily routine? It's what I'm supposed to do. It's, and really like stepping back and asking the question, is this feeding where I'm trying to go? Or have I just done it for 20 years? So I don't know. I just do it every day. I wake up and do this thing. Yep. Questioning the, validity of why we're doing the things. If they fit into where we're trying to go, do they fit our future, or do they fit our past? We just keep doing them just out of robotic motions. Okay, well, then let's stop doing them. Let's flip our life into being that version of the person that we desire to step into, as opposed to that person that we have been or people are used to us being, right? We don't have to be that person anymore. We can change our identity or step into the identity that we desire, as opposed to just leaning on this crutch of, well, I've always done this. People expect me to do this, Step back and say, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Instead of being the societal, cultural, or familial expectations that we face every day. You got me thinking on that with those everyday mundane things, right? Those can be a blessing and they can be a curse at the same time. Because if you're doing the same thing every day and say, oh, well, this is my life, I'm okay with it. Let's talk about being mothers. You and I are both mothers. And, even for these mundane, irritating things like dentist appointments once a year, doctor's checkups, whatever that looks like, right? If you're being intentional about that, you can take everyday little things. Me reading, I read every day just about. And if I don't set an intention with it, it can overrun my life. And then I get stuck in reading, or I get stuck in being a mother, or I get stuck in being a wife. And these everyday roles and titles, and
Yeah.
and then you kind of forget, well, who am I? What do I need? Is this helping my greater good? Is this creating the path that I need? Right. And when you do something every day, it becomes that habit. So creating intentional habits, I would say, is like our second step. The first being, of course, asking yourself, am I doing what I need to do to move forward? Right.
Yeah. And it's so easy, especially as women, right? We're caretakers, we're mothers. We love to take care of people in our innate nature. So it's easy to lose ourselves in that, right? And I'm guilty of it myself, especially when our children are small, right? Because they need us a lot. They need us for everything, right? So it's very easy for that to be all encompassing. And I actually had, when my son was small and I was going through a divorce and all these things, I had someone ask me, who is Cathy? And I was like, well, I'm Riley's mom. And they were like, yes, but who is Cathy? And I couldn't answer the question because, to your point, I had lost myself in that all-encompassing, everything was just these tasks of being a mother, right? That I couldn't even explain it to somebody. And so I had to step back and be like, okay, yes, I am his mother, but what about me? Who am I? And what do I want from my life? And the only way for him to see and learn and know about these things is for me to embody them, right? We can't just sit on our pedestal and preach and do as I say, not as I do. And so I had to take a step back and be like, whoa, if that's not coming across and I'm not doing that, that means my son is not seeing it. I need to change the way I'm showing up. I need to change the way that I'm doing things, because he's going to start observing a very different person than what I want him to see and learn and grow from. So I'm guilty of it myself. I think we all have been at different points in our life. But I mean, the reality is most of our actions, most of our decisions, we have time to step back and ask the question. We are in this instant society where we think we need to respond right away, right? We see the notifications on our phone. Oh, we got to respond right away. Or the social media notification pops up. I got to reply to that comment. The reality is most of those responses don't need to be immediate. We've just programmed ourselves to it. And so if you step back and be like, there's a certain time where I'm going to be very intentional about responding to things. There's a certain time where I'm going to be very intentional so that I can focus and be present where I'm at, as opposed to just all over the place popcorning, as I call it, right? And thinking about, I don't have to make an immediate decision for most things. There's emergencies, but for most things, I don't have to make an immediate decision. I can step back and think things through and think about if they truly fit where I'm trying to go and what I'm trying to do, as opposed to just responding to something and then stepping back and going, why did I do that? I don't know how this fits, but now I'm obligated to do it because I said yes, right? So allowing ourselves the space and the time is huge, especially in today's society.
I have an off the wall intentional habit that I do drop off and pick up for my girls every day. And when I'm in my car, my go-to when I'm in my car is to just blast the music, loud bass, all that you can hear me down the street. Right. But that's a happy place for me. Right. That's something that I truly enjoy doing. So even though it takes me 5 minutes to get home from picking them up after school, I still take that time where they know, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we're just going to turn up the music. And for that 5 minutes, I'm going to get in like 2 or 3 songs. And then you can talk to me when we get home. Right. And that's an intentional thing. And I've taught them that, because that's kind of like my music is a feeder for me. It fills my cup. It makes me feel good. And if I need to express or de-stress, that's usually how I would go about it, is music, right? When I'm cooking, music, when I'm cleaning, music. So when I'm doing mundane things, I add something to it that makes it, I could be sitting here at my computer prepping the week's shows, and I've got, a series that's playing beside me where I'm listening to a show that I've watched, or a show that I want to watch, or, if I'm sewing, I've got music, or I'm watching a TV show while I'm doing it, right? I incorporate many different things to intentionally feed what I.
Yeah. And it's finding those things, right? And sometimes it's not only identifying those things, but it's being open to the fact that they might change over time, right? Music right now for you is your thing, but you know what, after a while or 10 years from now, it might not have that same sort of effect. And so you might maybe have something else, right? And so I think we have to be very open to the fact that, what worked yesterday might not work today. And that's okay, right? It's okay to change those things. And it's okay, just because you always listen to the music on school pickup, one day you might not listen to the music on school pickup. And that's okay too, right? Showing the children that it's okay to change and evolve. And it's okay to say, you know what, that doesn't do the same calming effect for me that it used to do. And so, but I found something else. And how cool is it that we can learn and evolve and grow?
Yep. I take my tablet with me now, and because I go early. If anybody knows drop off and pickups for kids, you want to get there like half an hour early for a good spot. So I go, and it's like they start school and end school half an hour apart. But instead of going back home, dropping one off, going back home, picking up the next one, I just take them both with me. So I'll go pick up my oldest daughter, who's out just before 3. I get there at 2:30, and I bring my tablet and I do graphics while I'm waiting. I'm listening to music, doing graphics. So I'm again combining. So I'm being productive, waiting for my daughter, listening to music, and it's like all therapeutic, right? Intentional with that is I'm working on my business, I'm waiting for my daughter, and I'm feeding my soul at the same time, right? And that's all stepping towards, because if I'm not in a great frame of mind, I'm not going to want to do the mothering. I'm not going to want to do the wifing. I'm not going to want to do the business. I'm not going to want to do any of it if I'm not in a great frame of mind, right?
No, and certainly not in a good mood, right? You're going to end up showing up frazzled, stressed, grumpy, all those things. And that's not really who we are at the end of the day. That's a byproduct of the state that we're in, right? And so it's like, we don't want to take it out on those around us just because we weren't intentional in taking that time for those things that feed us.
Absolutely. And for anybody watching or catching the replay, that those intentional habits that create, a happier, healthier version of yourself, they don't have to be a long time. You can do the 15-second breathing technique, where it's inhale for 5, hold for 5, exhale on 5. That is one of the most relaxing breathing techniques I have ever done.
The box breathing. Yeah.
Like 15, 20 seconds. Like, it's such a short period of time.
And you can do it anywhere. You don't need anything special. You don't need to be anywhere special. You could just do it. Right. It's, another one I do, I've done with a lot of moms, is because as women, of course, we're emotional creatures. We got a lot going on in our heads, whether it's to-do lists, thoughts, emotions. There's a lot of stuff going on up in there. And so journaling is powerful, right? And how often, do we just not, in today's society, we have the tablets or we have the phones or whatnot. We don't carry just pad, a notebook, and a pen anymore. But there's so much power in just kind of old school journaling. Like really just getting the words on the page. Yeah, typing is fun. And if you're in a crunch, you can type it in notes on your phone or voice memo to yourself, whatever works. But sometimes it's just so therapeutic to actually write it out that, we all carry bags, whether it's a purse or a briefcase or whatever.
I was just about to say, I've got like mom-sized purses, right? Like all of my purses are like at least this big, right? And I always have pen and paper in there.
Yeah. And it's like we had gotten away from it. A lot of people had gotten away from it because whether you're carrying the diaper bag or you're just carrying your phone, you don't want to carry something, right? But then, you know what? Then you forget almost to sit down and just brain dump all that stuff in your head. And then you can think so much more clearly. And it doesn't have to be some sort of like formal journaling process. Make it bullet points, make it a doodle, make it, you know, some art, whatever it is. But like brain dumping, taking 5 minutes to brain dump while you're waiting at the doctor in the waiting room or in the carpool lane is so powerful.
That's one of the reasons why I created the Rockstar Method, is because, and I've said this 100 times and I will say it 100 more because everybody needs to know this.
Mhm.
Your emotional health is what messes with your mental health,
100.
right? If you don't learn how to control your emotions, that doesn't mean you don't feel them. It doesn't mean you ignore them. It's literally being able to control and process them so that they don't control you. Because when your emotions control you, then that creates mental health issues where you're not focused on the present, you're focused on the past, or you're focused on the future, and you're reactive to everything, right? And that's the frazzled and the stress and the overwhelm that you had mentioned, because we're so caught up in our emotional well-being that we're not taking that time to go, okay, I'm gonna just release emotions, figure out what they mean, and then I'm going to be like, oh, I never thought of that, right?
But it's, you have to get through the clout of the emotions to see clearly and be able to sort of redirect to where you need to go, as opposed to sort of being stuck in this emotional cloud, which again, as women, it's easy to do, right? We were born as emotional creatures, and there's a whole lot that we deal with and go on, and we take on other people's emotions very easily. And so having that ability to bust that emotional cloud, again, whether it's journaling, listening to music, finding whatever it is your thing, so that you can cut through that and intentionally move on. Okay, it's not the emotion speaking, but I need to be very intentional about how I react, because how I react is going to set the tone for where I'm trying to go and how I get there.
Yeah. So for me, intentional living is knowing the reasons behind it. And intention, a lot of it comes down to emotional, right? So if you're having a conversation with a family member or a friend or a coworker and you're emotional, the way you say something or the way you engage with that person, your emotions will come through, right? If you're being intentional, right? And you say, okay, I'm not telling you this out of anger. I'm not telling you this to hurt your feelings or anything like that. I'm trying to express how I feel, what I'm thinking, and I'm just sharing that with you. I don't need the, to debate it or anything along those lines, just being open. Intentional comes down to communication as well. And that's where I'm going with that, is when we can have healthy communication because it's intentional, right? If somebody comes up to you and says, well, what you said really hurt me, you have to be able to know whether that was your intention or not.
Right. And only you know your intention, right? I can't speak for anybody else's intention in the room. I can speak to, how I received it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that was your intention. And so to your point, having those calm conversations about, this is how I received it, or this is how it was perceived. Was that your intent? As opposed to sort of going in with all that emotion and being like, why did you intend to hurt my feelings? Well, that might not have been. It could have been how it came across. It could have been how it was received. There's so many factors in communication. But taking the time to sit down and being clear on, this is how it was received, or this is how it was processed. Was that your intent? Was that the space that you were coming from, so that we can understand each other and move forward, is huge and powerful. And in today's society, sometimes we don't take the time for those conversations because they do take time, and we're in such a fast-paced world, right? We just want a yes, no answer so we can move to the next thing. That we lose a lot in our relationships, in the value of our relationships, when we don't sort of circle back and have that conversation on, was that really what you intended? Because that's kind of how it came off. And I don't want us to be on the wrong foot or a misunderstanding between us, so that we can move forward. And I think we need to take the time to do that for ourselves. So we're not having the emotional confusion around, why would they do that? Did they intend to do that? Right. And the value of the relationship, like, let's clear the air. Let's make sure that we are both intentional and receiving on the same page, because that extra confusion or stress or emotion around who said what, why did they do, like that's not value added to either party.
Yeah. Another way to be intentional is, again, communication, but communicating what you need. Right. Or I had this conversation today, and we might do an episode for futuristically on this particular topic, but when you're in a relationship, whether that's, again, romantic, familial, co-working, whatever that looks like, if somebody's doing something that hurts your feelings, or if you need something and you're not receiving it, if you're not intentional about that need or intentional about that emotion, you can't resent, get angry, or hold harmless that other person.
Yeah.
If they don't know, right? So I use the example today. 5 love languages. Mine is physical. So if I don't get snuggles, or my favorite is when my husband rubs my palm. I don't know why.
Just a gesture. Yeah.
Right. So if I'm feeling neglected, I know that it's not intentional, right? But I say, hey, I need some snuggles, or can you rub my hand, or whatever. I have to be intentional in asking for what I need or what I want, and not hold resentment to my partner if they don't mind read and understand what I need.
Well, that's the thing. Again, like in any relationship, friendship, coworkers, romantic, our partners are not psychics. They are not psychics. And so your husband might not even have realized that he was going about his day or whatever it might be, had to get to work, something for the kids. It's not like he was purposefully forgetting that. And in any relationship, I think we need to be, to your point, we need to be clear and communicate those things. And we need to check in with our friends, like, hey, what's going on? I haven't heard from you in a while. It's not that they don't want to have a friendship with me anymore. Maybe there is something going on in their life that has them distracted, or they need to pay more attention to. So sitting down and like having those conversations, or voicing those needs or concerns, like everybody has so much going on in today's world. Like the expectation for someone to be psychic, or for someone to pick up on the fact that you're feeling that something is missing, right? Like the world is moving too fast, and yes, your close partner should be very in tune with you. They should, but life happens, right? And life happens. There's distractions, there's to-do lists. I got to go to work. I got to, whatever it might be. Right.
They have to put themselves first.
They what? I'm sorry.
Like your partner has to put themselves first, just like you have to put yourself first, right? So you can't expect that they're going to go around every day going, what do you need? What do you want? How can I help you? Right? Like, yeah.
they have their own things to do and take care of themselves, go to their job, whatever it might be. Right. And so, but if you're not having those like clear, mature conversations around, hey, I think something's missing, or you know what, I missed that connection between us, even friendships that have a gap of time for whatever reason, right? Hey, you know what, I really miss when we used to have girls' night out, and we don't do that anymore. Like, can we get that back on the calendar? Right. But nobody's going to know that unless you voice that.
I have a best friend of 35 years, just about 35 years. We went to kindergarten together. Wow. And in the 35 years, the longest we've gone without talking, I think, was 2 years at a time. And we go weeks, months, years without talking. And not because anything's happened, not because the relationship's not there. She still and always will be my absolute best friend, but life happens, right? And we've had that conversation. So I don't need to go, are you avoiding me? Do you need to, like, do you need space? Do you not want to talk to me? There's none of that, because it's, hey, life gets in the way. You've got 3 kids. I've got 4 kids. Right? Like,
What happens?
right? And it's understood, and we've communicated that. Where I have other relationships where they need that contact, whether it's a text or, a phone call or whatever, a check-in. They need that every so often. Otherwise, they start to feel like something's going on. And it's, again, communicating that. So intentional life for yourself. Let's get into that quickly before we get going. I think that putting yourself first and creating the intention of, like you said, first starting off and asking yourself, do you like where you're at? And who are you, right? Do you like where you are? Who are you? And what do you want? And when you get to that point, go to the next point and go, am I intentionally working towards what will make me happy, or where I want to go, or the person that I want to express myself as? What does that look like, right? And we don't have to make rapid changes, right? If you have long hair and you want a pixie cut and green, you don't have to do it all at once, right? Slow. You can do it slow and steady. You can shave it all off, whatever, right? As long as you're intentionally doing it to please yourself.
Yeah, to please yourself and towards that bigger vision, right? I mean, and it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't have to be leaps and bounds every single day. Many days it's baby steps, and that's okay, because it's still forward motion. And even if it's just, I just did one thing today that was towards the goal, that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Tomorrow I might do 3 or 4 things that's towards the goal. Like, it doesn't have to sort of be beating ourselves up because we didn't accomplish 15 things every day towards the vision, right? I mean, and life will ebb and flow. And with our kids, there's busier times and slower times, and not beating ourselves up for what are baby steps, because there's still forward progression.
Yep. And just a big side, because emotions are a huge component to life. If you need a day, don't beat yourself up for taking that day. You need a few days to process. If you need a few days to intentionally sit with how you're feeling and go through that process, that's totally fine. There are days, and I am an emotional and mental health expert, okay? And there are still days where I'm like, I am drained. I have no energy or no time or no anything to get up and do what I need to do. So I'm taking a me day, and I'm just going to relax, and I'm going to recharge, and I'm going to intentionally make myself, my cup full again. And that's okay too.
And you have to. I mean, I'm an introvert and I'm an empath. So if I'm on 100% of the time, I am drained very, very quickly, and I will not be showing up as my best self. And so I know there are days that I turn it all off, and I'm in my own little quiet world, take my dog for a walk, do what I need to do with 0 interruptions, because I need to restore my peace so that I can serve. But if you don't recognize that and you're not self-aware of that, you sort of drain yourself faster than you replenish yourself, and then you cannot be the person that you want to be.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going?
Oh, I think the reality is, like, we, especially as women and moms, right? It's easy to get lost in the shuffle, but we need to sort of really stand in and own who we are and what we want to be, and work towards that, not just for ourselves. It's not selfish at all. It's for our kids. It's for our households. It's for, the communities that we serve, the businesses that we serve. And there's nothing wrong with it. And I think getting past that feeling of it's selfish or it's for me, it's not for you. It's for everyone that you serve.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Cathy. I really appreciated it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. For anybody watching or catching the replay, if you would like to connect with Cathy, please do so. Her links are in the description of this episode. Go and check her out, connect with her, ask her any questions that you may have. Share, of course, share this episode, share the love, make sure that you get involved and start creating healthy conversations of your own with intention. Do that today. If you'd like to be a guest speaker or a guest blogger or a sponsor of the show, please reach out to us at justalivetv.com. Yeah, again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
All right, go check out the Embrace Your Positivity Guide by our sponsor, A Phoenix Identity. Learn how to control your emotions. All right, I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on when or where you're watching. I will talk to you all on the next episode.